From the 25th of the 5th month of 1434, Harold Klemp's Youth Acts a Modern Prophet About Life, Love, and God. And this is my comment on the section called Love and Relationships. Finding out if a relationship is out of love or otherwise worth it is important to figure out. What you think of the person and your relationship should be tested against reality. What is good for you and them is important. It is okay to get attached, but plans about them should be open to some change. One may give as one gets, but should be willing to act loving by itself. Help others in their spiritual struggle, but one shouldn't let their struggle tear you down. One should involve oneself with those who respect your spirituality and theirs. Sometimes it's necessary to be of the same spiritual tradition. Sometimes it's better to be of different ones. Harold Klemp doesn't approve homosexuality in his book. He just says that everyone is accountable directly to God for their personal choices. In Islam, homosexuality and other fetishes aren't sins in themselves. Well, I mean, in the desires themselves. Only extramarital sex and other sins are. Al-Quran Surah 4, Ayat 1 speaks of our spouses as being for our spiritual unfoldment. Al-Quran Surah 30, Ayat 21 speaks of those who actually live this divine sign in their lives together. Eckankar literature speaks of spiritual twins in that way. But there is the implication of any sort of partnership that puts each other's spirituality first. One shouldn't manipulate emotional and physical states to manufacture such a sense of being spiritual soulmates. In Eckankar, a marriage includes a promise to try to bring each other towards becoming the heads of the Eckankar Corporation in this life. Eckankar speaks against extramarital sex of any sort. They tell you how their leader is always present to witness and how no claim of ignorance takes judging mental behavior to a whole new level when you are being told that their leader is always present and disapproves of such things. Love for and of the opposite sex is a way of knowing divine love. God's love shouldn't start or end there. One should involve that in your love of God. Divorce, for the reason of finding out you aren't in love, or for other reasons, can be a good thing or a bad thing. For the couple or their family. The Eckankar doctrine is that we choose who we're going to have for family even before we are born. In Eckankar, this love extends to pets, and some even claim to talk to their animals and understand when they talk back. One should train a pet in a way that works for it too. Some members of Eckankar will try to literally see the world through the eyes of animals. Difficulties between souls can sometimes be worked out in spiritual exercises. This can be true of just one of those involved. If just one of those involved does it, one may get relationship advice directly or in clues through dreams and visions. Other clues may reside in whom you attract and what problems they have. Your society can implant views in you that stand against those of your spiritual path. People are told to let what they say, Wasi or Harold J. Klemp, silently and outwardly, as they worship him, flow naturally as those they actually know well, as far as the Eckankar teaching. Is Al-Quran, Surah 486, right when it says that none of these intercessors can avail in anything not already agreeing with the reality? Is Al-Quran, Surah 36, 23 to 24 right in teaching us that we won't be helped by those who treat as gods, those that we treat as gods, and that we were actually astray in doing that? Are the Orthodox prophets all wrong? Do we actually need who is called the Mahanta, the living Ekmaster, to mediate our love of God and God's love for us? We should all make an effort to learn about divine love. When we love others more on the path to self-realization, loving ourselves will just happen. And I'm here with Saturnal Mage, or Lzwvmmh, Eve nu wa, and I could finish the second half, or we'll just leave that as the bit, and then we'll continue talking at that. So which do you want to do?
Like out of the book.
Okay, let's, without reading too much, basically just talking about the subjects that are involved. I thought, for particularly since the other part, and I guess maybe we can.
It says a technique to help break a pattern of poor relationships. I think that's very important, and a lot of people are suffering right now.
Technique. Oh, what page we're talking
19.
about? Oh, 19.
There's an exercise involved that it describes. Can I read about that part?
Thing is, I don't know how much you can say the quotes, but the yeah,
I'll just like mix
basic. Well, if you can say it without reading too much of it, yeah.
So the exercise would be to get a piece of paper and write down names of people that you've had relationships with in your life. It could be old, new, current. Maybe it should be all of them. I'm not sure yet. And they should fall under two categories: attractions and weak points. So in other words, what attracted you to each person, and be honest and fair. And then what was it about those people individually that caused a separation? I think that would help for several reasons. Just kind of knowing, what you're addicted to and how to break some certain addictions. Say you're attracted to people because of money, and that's not a loving or positive aspect. So maybe, it would help you see in the future for that being an example.
Well, if you remember what I've talked about before, there's 4 reasons why people get married, and only one's something that biologically we're designed to have feelings based
go over
on
that again, because that was a really good point.
Based on the bodily stuff, the status thing, and the wealth and all that. But the character, you got to find some character. It's okay to get married for money, but you better find somebody with a character that's not going to, as I say, drag you down. That's what I meant by drag you down, not necessarily somebody's having a hard time.
Personally, that the real reason for marriage at the core should be because you both love each other equally and so much that you want to unionize that, essentially, is my opinion. What about the subject or topic of wanting to prove your love and commitment to another, but there being no actual legal marriage? What are some common...
Well, the whole legal marriage thing isn't the thing. It's like one of the problems back in the day, while Christianity, Pauline Christianity doesn't allow divorce. So that was one of the things that people were wary about. But the other thing, church weddings were expensive, and your typical person couldn't afford a church wedding. Mm-hmm. So either people got married, the priest had a small wedding, which was kind of, even they killed priests for having small weddings that didn't cost too much. They didn't give the church too much money.
Killed?
Yeah, the Catholic Church had priests killed for having small-scale weddings done that weren't big old ceremonies. Because you were supposed to pay a certain amount and that sort of thing, and people...
Greed, it's infiltrated the churches. Remember that, folks.
Well, if you remember... I did my protesting Protestantism, but I would agree with Martin Luther on all these indulgences. You're having sin fees that, pay this much and you'll be forgiven. So some rich guy could go about raping and saying, hey, I have the money to pay for it.
No, anybody that knows God and has read properly knows that any and all men on earth cannot do what God can do, and we should not go to them. We should go to Him, being God, for anything like that. Because man is inherently sinful, each and every one of us, no matter how hard we've tried, we've all sinned.
We make mistakes, but inherently it's like our choice.
It's definitely not up to another man to forgive us. It's definitely to want to be forgiven from the ultimate creator.
Okay, I may with the
Speaking of
I'm
forgiveness,
not
there's
sure.
a really wonderful book, probably backwards on the screen, but it's Forgiveness by Rodney Hogue. And man, has this helped me. Forgiving, parents, friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, anybody. We need to learn how to forgive. It's very difficult, especially with all this new age narcissism being, radically accepted in society. Forgiveness.
That everybody's the same, or
It is
well,
hard. I have struggled with it myself.
there is the issue of, it's like, you just don't say it. You gotta, it's like these people that make a huge announcement every time. It's like, now that there's social media, people all the time are, the cat. All the time people are posting online. It's like, hey, I'm repenting. I'm repenting. It's like, knock it off with that.
Here's the Marby. And
So people need to live a life instead of just posting online that they're repenting or they're sober or some stuff like that.
I understand that they want support, and perhaps that is one way to reach out for it, and that's not a bad thing.
Oh, some people are being authentic, but it's like
whole pride thing.
And this other one, okay, just like I've tried to have in the background, the hue. So one of the next spiritual exercise in that book, in this book here, is that they basically to think about your dealing with your cause and effect and trying to heal from that, and at the very least, doing a spiritual practice. You can't do everything all at once. There's a lesson about the children of Israel, and the children of Israel, it's like they were presented with their metaphorically, you can look at it. The children of Israel, their deeds, it was like a mountain before them. But you pick up a rock at a time, you can live that life. You just can't, the mountain, So sometimes people are praying from a book. Sometimes all people have a word or a thought, and that's where they start. And you never know what you can finish with when you got that. And so at the very
how like my book shows the writing backwards because I'm a mirrored image. How do you change that?
I see the correct order from my angle.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
and so what's the
I see yours properly too, but when you look at your own, is it not proper?
No, I see it.
Well, I don't know. Okay.
And so let's, share a little something from each of these books. So going through quickly. Okay, opening your heart. Okay, you can't buy love. Well, you can buy love and money.
You cannot buy love. I watched enough 90 Day Fiance to know this.
90 Day Fiance. I'm not familiar with all the shows, but
just some reality TV stuff.
That's what they're doing right now, Aside from cutting off resources and stuff with what's going on, they are getting us used to not real TV shows. See, reality TV. It's going to be all reality TV in a few years. I hope not.
I know. It's so weird. It's like Earth is like literally turning into that movie called Idiocracy. Like every channel on TV is like reality, like judge shows and this and that. I don't know. It's crazy.
And the next one, obviously you focus on love and you focus on where your your relationships could go right instead of going wrong, I guess was the thing that we talked about there. Because so many things people are like, I remember somebody was like, they didn't tell me we were supposed to meet up in the early afternoon or something like that. And they didn't tell me when they called me at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or something that they were in the neighborhood and they wanted to meet up then. They didn't tell me, and they held it against me for months. But they never told me.
I think that's just them not being very self-aware, or possibly being selfish unknowingly, or not
But
being flexible.
I mean, there are stuff that you kind of have to deal with for a while, for a while, but you don't, you know. Well, there's an obvious one. It's the next one. You spend time, you listen to each other, you give each other advice, and
Mm-hmm.
you know. And is there anything else from this one before we perhaps go on and try to get a little something out of each of these books before we?
So what now?
Is there anything else out of this book, the Spiritual Wisdom on Relationships book, that you may want to?
I was just looking at different pages and
share a thought on?
um,
I don't know. I think there's another book or two that's been released in the past few years, but the other ones that we plan to
okay.
talk a little bit about.
How to see if basically a relationship is worth developing or saving. Here are 4 different things, apparently, that you should ask yourself. And I'm changing words, don't worry. Do they, he or she, bring you happiness to your heart when you think of that person? Do you want to make them happy? Will you or can you love him or her for what they are right now without trying to change them? And can you and will you let him be as he is right now, everything? If he's done something to hurt you, this is a part of his character. Can you accept that? Are you willing to still love him beyond that, instead of not what you just want him to be or who you want him or her to be? And the 4th piece of information is that not all Prince Charmings are toads, and not all toads are Prince Charming.
Of course, you can still love the person, but if they're hitting you and biting you and scratching you and all that, you kind of are in the case of a certain person we talked about, throwing the toasters and appliances at you. And
they clearly need spiritual help. There's spiritual
as soon as her husband could pack a bag, I think he left the country and was like, the green card's not. I wanted to be a what?
It's very sad for everybody involved.
Yeah, I did definitely get that. They, but I think the guy still loves her, but I think the implication I get is that
if there's still
it's just
love
not
involved,
safe.
Sometimes you have to love somebody from afar if they're acting dangerous. And the only way in order to save that type of relationship would be if both parties still love each other, and if the violent one is accepting that they are abusive and getting actual proper help, whether that's Bible study class or anger management or weekly therapy, some form of actual help, then I think the relationship can definitely be saved. Although I do think they'll have to love each other from afar for a little bit, probably at least 3 months if somebody's working on extreme anger, honestly.
And of course, a lot of it does depend on the nature and the degree of the violence, but yeah.
Yes. Yes. I mean, if they murdered the neighbor, well, they're going to go to jail and you probably can't do anything but write them letters.
Like this
but
one.
It is always good to love one another.
Like this one guy that I found out about that was big in the conspiracy theory, adrenochrome and whatnot community, and it turned out there was a guy that was big in the conspiracy theory, adrenochrome, elite killing children to eat them and all that stuff. And it turns out that he was raping, killing, and eating kids himself, and they don't know how many he did. And so he, anybody associated with him obviously has to,
Yeah, if you love or loved that person, do it from afar. Pray for them.
But yeah,
just because we're not with people.
I heard the guy's a
doesn't
fugitive.
Mean we don't love them anymore.
One of the attacks on police stations and stuff is that criminals are getting loose, and some pretty horrible criminals are getting loose amongst all this stuff going on right now.
Well, I think the best thing for that situation is to just pray that their hearts can and have been changed by God.
But he didn't kill his own kid or his son-in-law or whatever the situation was.
I knew
So
somebody
that
who
was a
murdered
survival.
their own adult child, and it's very, very tragic.
So, whoever he is, and whoever was his spouse or whatever that, or maybe it was a girlfriend. I don't remember the much.
You
of the
have
story.
more than one book, and I only have the relationship book. But what else have you got there?
Yeah. Whenever you go to a meeting,
Conquering Fear.
No. So you say, "Oh, I'll come back for the others," and they give you.
How can I get those ones?
If there's an Eckankar meeting in your area and you go to
there's something in the back to write them. Should I write them?
That and you can order these little books for like $3 a piece. I think they say $3.
Okay.
Yeah, $3 a piece.
Now, how do you order? Is there a form in the back?
You go to the website and order, or.
Oh, okay. I think I'm gonna do that this payday then, because I really like these books. These are very nice. And I'll share this book.
And how many New Age groups will come up with a book and it's like, they'll drastically overprice the book. They'll have a book with no more content than one of these things for like $50, and it's like, why? Oh, it's because
There's a really good little piece of advice that had been highlighted from Moon, because she gave me this book. And it's about forgiveness. And I just wanted to highlight it. It's just one sentence out of it. You must remember that what you feed grows, and what you starve dies. So if somebody wants to be able to forgive, they have to kill and starve off their anger, their grievances, their, negative attitude, and they have to decide to use that energy and time. Instead of feeling negatively, they have to decide to transform it into something positive so that they can feed the forgiveness.
And you want to know where this comes from before I have a closing point regarding this book. And
Yeah.
So there's two sources for this sort of teaching in particular that I'm aware of. One is a saying of the Native Americans that relates to two wolves, and which wolf that you are is the one that you feed. And the other is a similar teaching of an inspired saying of Muhammad, which
say that wolf saying, because I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember how it's said particularly. Should I look it up really quick?
Well, it may differ per who's saying it is part of the thing too. But you got two wolves, and they're both hungry, and the wolf you are is the one you feed, and there's more detail to it. So basically, your good and your bad character is that, and to throw in a couple extra things from the one other source is that there's a definition. There's a definition of religion, that most of religion is either marriage or family. They're both the same statement. So one of the things that Muhammad taught was most of religion isn't you pick up some book or you perform some ritual. It's family.
Sorry, hi, I'm here.
And that's what people miss. Religion means relationship. It's a relationship between with the creator, with the created.
Yeah.
So it's one thing when so people who say spirituality, they either mean they're leaving God out or they're leaving out creation to some degree. So but it's also regulation.
With the wolves, and they're making out right there. It's backwards to me. Can you see it?
I can see it, but I'm not sure.
So
they sometimes pull graphics if we have it too up too long. If you don't use your own graphics.
When I say I love you more, it doesn't mean I love you more than you love me. It means I love you more than the bad days ahead of us, and I love you more than any other fight that we'll ever have, and I love you more than the distance between us, and I love you more than any obstacle that could try and come between us. I think it's important to realize that.
And if you could please switch the graphic if that's not your own graphic.
Yeah, I'm going to right now.
Because everything has to be up for less than 30 seconds in a row of anything that's not your own.
Okay.
I don't know. This is the same letter. The one closer to the ear, and the other one is the same letter. If it's the ones that come with the Zoom, then they're perfectly fine. But so do you want to the change and growth thing, and then we'll talk about the other books, or
what part is that? I'm confused.
Another reading of my comment, and then we'll just go sort of random. So if you want to cue me in, and I'll.
Oh, is this like still going?
Yeah, we didn't stop.
Okay.
So this segment's about the change and growth chapter. A soul's goal is to learn and act on that which will benefit it until it ultimately returns to God. In Al-Quran, Surah 2, 285, it says that this and the next verse confirms the doctrine of seeking help from God while admitting accountability. A concept of responsibility shouldn't be used as an excuse for avoidance. The easy things should often come first. We should become adept at the basic spiritual ways. The difficult ways may be simpler that way. We should rely on our own inner wisdom. Fate may seem like chance, but our choices are still ours to face consequences for. One should gain experience in life without using it to assert a sense of spiritual superiority over people because of being on a path longer. From what I hear and read, the higher initiates in Eckankar tend to be less developed psychologically and spiritually. It seems the belief in the organization breaks a lot of development down in many people, even when there don't seem to be exceptions. The member of Eckankar Corporation is encouraged to stay involved with the group for reasons they don't know. The hardest thing to do can be helping others to change, particularly adults. Youths can help with that too. That rite of passage is a rite that someone turning 18 may choose to do to mark their status as an adult Eckist. To motivate people, you have to learn about people. Even when young, we can forget even simple things like a word. In Eckankar, the idea is that one can use special secret words in dreams and initiations to progress in life of maintaining one's current state of development. Even Harold Klemp admits one can find their own word. Practice paying attention, and less will be lost or forgotten. Evolution in species is a long-term change, but that is possible. Doing things out of duty instead of love is okay, but it may mean one is not as open anymore. You have to continually involve your own will in the process of what you become in the future. If a miracle is divine intervention, it only takes awareness of how to show how God was involved. We can do better, and we seem to be able to. Do Eckmasters intervene in this way, or do not even the historical leaders of Eckankar play a role? I do agree that divine love is always present, though, and Eve, Wuv, Juf, Vo, Sug, Eve, Nu, Uwa. Our Saturnal Mage is still here with me, I see. And so I guess the place to start is the prayer, meditation, and contemplation book. And I've talked about this in The Blonde Stranger in the Creek. There's a call of soul. And this call of soul is something that, most of us, we hear the call of the media, or the call of our friends, or whatever. But there's a deeper call, which we would hope was buried amongst those things, but we can't. So that pushes us towards something more. And the term spiritual exercise means that it's something that's, one does, repeatedly, I guess, and one gets better at. It's like some stuff to really feel it. It's like if you pray in the biblical sense, or a lot of these old languages that they had a, you know, but once you do it for you know, it can take a couple months until you're like, Zoom, oh yeah, this is it. I've built these pathways and I can experience it like it's supposed to be experienced. But at first you're like, you know, so being quiet is one of the most basic things. Is that meditation isn't just being quiet, it's sort of a in-between state. That's all really meditation means. So it's altering your change of state of consciousness, which is sort of like the definition of magic. I mean, how else would you define magic? There's two basic ways.
It's definitely all about thinking patterns and symbolism and attention. What do you intend to do with your mind in those moments? What do you want to bring or manifest with those intentions? Because it's kind of like the law of attraction in a sense. It does work. Like whatever you, like exactly what this book just said, you know, what you feed will grow and what you starve will die. So basically, where do you want to put that energy that you have at all times? Do you want to let it go to waste? Do you want to use it for something good? Do you want to use it for something evil? You know, morals come into play obviously there, but it's like you could spend the next year eating right and exercising, or you can spend that same amount of time a year not changing anything and just continuing to be unhealthy. But whatever you do, that time is still going to pass. That time equals your energy, your life force, your energy force. What will you do with it? So you can choose many levels of anything.
Like,
Choose
you know,
consciousness levels. Like, do you want to meditate? Do you want to be a performer and use your energy singing? Do you want to, you know, do dance? Like,
and there's, you know, you know, nowadays we have this, you know, instead of chemical imbalance fixing, either recreational or medication drugs.
Also hormones. Like,
and
I know
people,
hormones are chemicals at the same time, but like hormonal imbalance is such a thing on the rise and has been misdiagnosed so many times.
And what I was, it turned out I didn't have enough money to buy that too, and I guess I'll have to go back another month. Everything's going up in price, but so I saw, you know, shea butter and soaps and all that stuff, and the soaps, so many of the soaps are sodium lauryl sulfate, which is supposed to particularly not be good for males. And all the soaps, it's like, I'm not spending like more for a fancier version of what I'm not supposed to have.
Yeah. There's no point in poisoning the
so, but, you know, the monkeys of the mind exercise, you know, is that you don't try to repress it, because like analoxyloids push it back, but it tends to come back stronger. Almost every one of those psychiatric medications brings back that anxiety, bounces back stronger because you've been weakened and the medication's no longer holding the thing back. So not only you're weaker and the same thing's coming back.
Yeah, because a lot of pharmaceuticals are designed to not heal you and not cure you, but keep you sick. Because if they keep you sick and they keep you addicted,
or reduce your function. Or reduce your function. If you're sleeping 15 hours a day, you have less symptoms.
They don't want competition with people out there. They want to literally disarm people.
If you're sleeping 15 hours a day because you're taking medication, obviously you have less symptoms. But saying that you're better is quite the stretch. But that's what they do to you. Yeah.
Going to be
so
blisters.
So a lot of meditators talk the same thing. You don't blank your mind. You deal with your mind. So you learn to just
deal with your shit, because it ain't going anywhere. You can't hide, you know.
Because some, you know, what happens when you try to blank your mind? All that stuff. It's you know, and some of the worst stuff comes out, and that's the only thing you can deal with, because you're trying to pretend the other stuff.
It's like a serial killer, like trying to lay there at night and sleep. He's not going to be able to. He's got too much crap on his mind because he hasn't dealt with his anger or whatever unresolved issues properly.
Obviously that sort of thing is an issue, but it varies what people do. There is, yeah, people program themselves into things, and this is what this segment's about, is reprogramming yourself. So you
Oh yes.
First
It's
you
like if
learn to
you
come
end up
up.
in a
First,
kind of
the first thing is, well, I'll try to make a quick list of the spiritual exercise portion. The first type of thing is the, well, okay, I'll break that into two. Connecting to God, whatever that means for you. Trying to figure out, trying to become aware. Letting the distractions pass.
I think the easiest
Appreciating.
way to connect to God, I think, is you can do it anywhere. You can do it from a jail cell, you can do it from your car, you can do it from under your bed. But I think the best place to do it is outside. Like literally go look at the creationism around you, the trees, the air, the grass, the dirt. Stick your body in the dirt or in the river. Like really appreciate that connection that you feel. It'll be there.
And well, this other one is 15 times. 17 is actually more common in religious traditions, but breaking into small things is like you want to learn how to meditate for just a little bit anywhere, That's what Tibetan Buddhism and Islam in particular teaches, that every few hours you just take a few minutes and do your thing. And the next thing is, you got path working. The next thing is,
and be mindful of all your activities.
we see this chart. We see this chart here. And for some reason, Zoom has changed the color, making some of it harder to see, which I'm very disappointed about Zoom for doing that to us. And same thing with YouTube. YouTube auto-corrects my color. This is supposed to be green down there. This is a richer orange, and this is a blue. And
weird. Why do you think they do that?
But when it's blue against white or blue against black, it's not part of the rainbow. See, this blue is sort of okay. Why is this blue?
Are they against the rainbow?
I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to do, but so you work through themes and you work through things in succession. Like people have their cosmologies. You're familiar with the pentagram, right? Well, I've done one in front of you and Moon before with my scented broom.
Symbolism is everywhere around us, and I highly advise people to learn about symbolism, common symbolism.
And a lot of stuff opens up to you once you understand symbolism, rather than either you take it completely literal, and even if it's literally true, some stuff's literally true, and that's fine. But the Bible really opens up to you once you realize some of the symbology. Like the book of Revelations talking about the time and guidance for the time. But when you make it about trying to predict the future and trying to taking it into a new context, that's one thing. But the book of Daniel and Revelations, they tend to put somewhere like they miss the artful character of those books.
Is there such thing as a healthy mukbang? Like, do people want to watch people eat really healthy? Because maybe it'll motivate them to do it or something.
I think people do it regardless, but people are more likely to do the vegan food, transformed pretend meat mukbangs than they are actually healthy food. What I've noticed. But I really don't want. I want to see a video on a subject or people talking. I don't really want to see videos of people eating. That's not really my thing. But I can't hear you crunching, so we'll just let this be the side. And one thing about meditation, prayer, and all that is that you're discovering yourself. You're connecting with spiritual realms. You're identifying as with ideals, but self-discovery is certainly an essential point. And is there anything else before we move on to another book about how to change yourself, but a spiritual basis for change would be.
Mm-hmm.
So
are you reading from a book or just talking right now?
I'm flipping through these things one by one, trying to figure out some stuff. So is there anything else?
Conquering your one next.
So
That's gonna change your life.
Well, here we have Kalnaron John or Jotnaron John is known as time without fear, the highest without blame, and that is the thing. There's innocent ones, like for example in the Islamic tradition, there's the innocent ones. There's sort of that thing not so clear in Judaism and Christianity, but there's a divine name or plane ruler or something called Kalnaron John or Jotnaron John. So one of the things you have to do, what?
Should we go over the person who wrote these, by the way, like quickly?
Because
I personally don't know anything about them, but I think you do.
Well, that's sort of what we're doing. Harold Klemp. So he joined Eckankar back in the 60s, and he went and met the leader, Paul Twitchell, these are by Harold Klemp, so it's not a different writer, but Paul Twitchell was big. He was big into comparative religion, and he was number 3 in Scientology, according to some of the Scientology material back in the 50s. And so he was one of the first people declared clear. And on average, nowadays, it costs $250,000 to become clear. So it's not just, there's money and effort that needs to be made for them to move you up the organization. Eckankar, you serve your time. Like if you serve 42 years, you have a chance of being their leader, a very good chance of being their leader. 42 years after turning 18. So you have to be 18 and part of the adult program for 42 straight years, and you can possibly become leader.
So how do you do that?
But anyway,
is it in the book? You join through the book or something?
But so and Kirpal Singh, Radha-Swami, Eckankar is a spinoff of Radha-Swami. But a lot of people, they wanted to experience there used to be ads in like science magazines and stuff. Do you want to experience bilocation and soul travel and spiritual travels and stuff like this? And people back in the 60s that was enough to get you into a group, is that they say, hey, we can teach you how to have an experience without drugs. And so people would join groups learning how to meditate and how to symbolically do art, and a lot of good came from that. I'm absolutely not disputing that. But so Harold Klemp, he spent his time in the organization. He met the leader. He worked in the corporation. That's how you get your way. You move across the world, and you move to Minnesota, and you live in the headquarters. Or if the next person moves the headquarters to somewhere else, every time every Eckankar leader has moved the headquarters to a new location. Las Vegas was the headquarters for Paul Twitchell. Darwin Gross had the headquarters moved to Menlo Park, California.
How come Harold Klemp refers to himself on the members area of the website as the master?
Well, Kyrie, like in the Bible, if you understand that Kyrie as Lord means like spiritual master and not necessarily like calling him God, then you kind of understand what. But they Eckankar kind of, as you know, as I've mentioned, and it will become clearest in the last program. I may do that with somebody else. I'm not sure at this point, because I think that's sort of the program that of this list that he would like to do. But so this Radha-Swami kind of branched off. It's kind of a Sikh branch off, and Sikhs. One of the difference between a Sikh and Islam is that rather than God revealed a book, as we've mentioned earlier in this series, God sends prophets, and their message is enough. Their teachings are enough for humanity to guide themselves. Radha-Swami says that you have to have a living master. So Eckankar picks up on that and says that you have to have a living master, that the teachings work because you have a living head of the organization. As long as you have that living head. And a lot of churches do that too. They say, when they have a new leader of the international church, they'll say, oh, he's the prophet. And in the church I was a member of, you'd raise your right arm. You raise your right arm like in sort of a Masonic sort of like swearing at the giving your testimony in court sort of thing. You lift your right arm as a square, and you testify. You affirm that this guy is the leader, basically. That God, you accept that God called such an individual. And Eckankar is sort of the same way, except they don't make you go through the motions in that way. They just, you either stay a member of the group or you don't. So he worked at the corporation doing publishing, worked at their publishing department and stuff like this. So he did, and he started off giving speech. You know, you become a local leader, or you become a regional leader and you give speeches. Maybe you become a big enough leader that they let you travel around giving speeches about your book that favors the corporation and stuff like this. Because Eckankar is a corporation. They've restructured it as a corporation. So they have a board. They used to have a board of 9 people that chose the leader. And that backfired on the guy who set it up because 8 people voted against him, saying, hey, this other guy can do the job. But I don't know how you can vote out if there's profits. I don't know how a corporate board.
Do you have a membership with Eckankar?
No, I don't have a membership. There's really nothing left to respond to.
Do you have to have a membership in order to order these books?
These books, no. Some of the books, yes, and some of the books, it depends on which membership. There's books.
I just read that it's $60 a year.
Yeah, they try to get $60 a year. Now they'll let you pay less. They'll let you pay less, but
they will. But it has to be charged to a credit card over the course of 12 months. Every month, you have to make a certain donation.
So basically, they will let you pay $1 a month instead of $5.
Yeah.
Which pays for the material. There, it's fair. You get a book. You get a book once a year, and a book and a CD once a year, and they send you the newsletter. It's for $1 or $2.
There is a portion of that website that says send a letter to the master, and you can upload files or just write to him. That's kind of interesting.
Twice a year he gives a speech. This is going up around the time where he does his speech. He gives a speech where traditionally he's taken 3 letters and quoted and retold to some degree part of the story. So that's what happens there, is that every year, it's a pretty cush job. He sits there and gives teachings that he relates to the letters, which he tends to be credited for everything that goes on in their life. If they have a dream, he takes credit. If they don't die in a car accident, he takes credit. So that's obviously an iffy thing that we said there. Just like we didn't go into this, and I'm not encouraging that myself, is that he recommends people saying his name and picturing him when they pray. Which I'm not. No. I'm saying no one do that.
I'm not comfortable with that, but I do like the book.
Yeah. One can pray to God directly. One doesn't have to mention. What's this thing that I'll share the intro to something. We don't have to say where it's from. Where is this? There's something I was looking at earlier today. There. So we don't have to say where this was from, but okay. Bernardino Lagora. I'm sorry. Bernardino Logara, who knew the value of money. Karl Haushofer, a teacher without a classroom. Rasputin, who knew the magic of a child. Sir Basil Zaharoff, a gentleman. Cagliostro, a rogue. Barnabas Saul, the link with Mount Lalish. Ragnar Redbeard, whose might is right. William Mortensen, who looked and saw. Hans Brick, who knows the law. Max Reinhardt, a builder of dreams. Oren Klapp, the walking man. Fritz Lang, who made moving blueprints. Friedrich Nietzsche, a realist. William Cloud Dukenfield, who saved me a journey to Tibet. Phineas Taylor Barnum, another great guru. Hans Paulzig, who knew all the angles. Reginald Marsh, a great artist. William Reich, who knew more than cabinet making, Mark Twain, a very brave man, and Howard Phillips Lovecraft is mentioned there, but Howard Phillips Lovecraft, what can we say about him? Not afraid to be aware of the shadow. Let's just say that. So you can say stuff like that, but when you start praying to these dudes, it's like, it's like I've seen video of people, they pray to God, and all of a sudden they're interrupting their prayer to God to have this, to seek the intercession of such and such saints, or whatever they want to call these individuals.
I see. Yeah, like Archangel Michael or something. I don't know.
And it's like, one of the interesting things that the book of Revelation, is it the book of Revelations where it basically says that the angels, this basically refutes the idea of praying to angels, because the angels do the will of God. They don't do the will of people. So, and there's a story that's different parts of Hindu. There's not Hindu, by Hindu I mean the race. Amongst the Hindu race, there was different things written, and there was some of these stories, the sage or the prophet or whatever the case would be, saw an entity, and the entity's like, there's a greater entity than me. I'm not God. And basically, no matter how far up it went, I'm not God. So, and any of these gendered creations, any of these angels that maybe aren't gendered, it's beyond that. And not in the way of the ancient alien theorist. It's like, this is infinite regress. The aliens did it, and the aliens did it for the aliens, and the aliens did it for the aliens. It's like, are you going to have a creation at some point, or a Big Bang or some point? What's going to happen? It's like, we haven't got that far in our theology, because really ancient alien theorist is a way of having an alternative religion without actually saying God or something, or actually, completing and saying creation. But so the spiritual exercise to count fear.
Beings from the sky working for Satan. So take that as you will.
That's actually one of the secrets in a way to what we're going to talk about, because conquering fear relates to this astral plane. An astral plane has the equivalent of the devils and the devil, but Eckankar doesn't quite. A lot of New Age religions, and by that I include so-called people who like to call themselves pagan, heathen, druid. A lot of these people don't know what they're aren't really recreating old religions. The witches were the enemies to the ancient Europeans. That's how they referred to witches. It wasn't like witchcraft was just like non-Christian religion. Witchcraft meant something particular. The word witchcraft means they're consciously making deals with demons. Lilith and Ashtaroth and horrible sounding names. If you look at I'm gonna pull up a graphic just to show you.
I'm gonna leave the room for a moment to use the restroom.
Okay. Well, I'll
you can have the floor. I'll only be gone for like less than 60 seconds if you want.
Well, I'll pause it.
Okay. All right. I'll be right back.
So returning with ease. So to conquer the astral plane, well, you need to deal with your fear. So fear is not just going to step aside. Same thing with the guilt and shame. It's not just going to step aside and that's going to be it. You gotta figure out what these particular issues are, and let these symbols behind us represent that. Is that let those symbols in my graphic represent the fact that we have these different these issues. So shyness and fear are our most basic drives, but we got to figure out what they're for and not involve these drives when they're not. Health and healing, yes, there's spiritual exercises where you explore the issues, and there's the blue light, there's the green light on the other side, and the white light. White light particularly related to the head. There's other light-related exercises that people do, and this operates as sort of it has a placebo effect, but there's work that you can do associated with these things, and you can say spiritual words that relate to your issues, just like when people work on these categories of the Goetia and that sort of thing. Karma and reincarnation, one of the basic things is, okay, reincarnation is sort of like hell because you're paying for your deeds and all that sort of stuff. So figuring out how to live a life that is, you know, that you don't have, that you get it right the first time, per se, that you're dealing with things while you're here. You're perfecting your life as you are now. And dreams. So what are you gonna welcome into your dreams? Are you not gonna do that at all? There was a graphic in here. Feel free to share anytime. Dreams connect you to time. They connect you to they connect to your outer life and all sorts of stuff. So interpreting your dreams and manipulating your dreams. Eckankar, you've seen before different things. They say, you know, they try to get you to interpret anybody that looks like any of their leaders, and they have different charts of their leaders that give. So basically, different types of people, you'll see them in the things. So as far as these 4 books, is there anything you want to, per se, say anything before we close?
I need to read them more.
Because there's obviously more than just that brief summary. I mean, I think I've done a program on each of these books without, say, you know, reading the book. But that's as best as I can summarize it as quick as I can on the spot. I think, you know.
But
so I said why in regards to the fear, right? What you're capable of, why you're afraid, why you're shy, why, you know. Sometimes it's not really something you can do much.
People are inherently afraid of rejection, and
sometimes it's like one of the things people don't understand about post-traumatic stress disorder, in whatever form that may be, is that the post-traumatic stress disorder is, you know, it's, you know, it may be a reaction. You may know.
With that.
What?
I have been labeled with that term by.
You may, you know, whether it's how you interact with people or however it's a disability, you may just have no choice what it's going to do with you. You know what I mean?
It's almost kind of like a possession, and you have to.
It's like
really get in yourself and
it's
decide.
Whether it's the flashbacks or the feelings, or you just can't do stuff because it's like, you know, it's like you figure, hey, I'm in public. It's not like somebody I know has attacked me when they figured no one could see or hear what they were doing. But when you're in, you know, that sort of thing, or maybe you've been attacked in public, but people are being nice to you, and it's like you can't interact with them like you should. When, you know, someone put on gloves and tried to
be polite, quick, fast to get out of the situation because you're just in another place.
Like, honestly, every time someone's tried to kill me, it's stuck with me.
Yeah. I have a lot of flashbacks of a time that I won't go into detail.
Yeah, and you know, I know what you're talking about, but yeah, it's part of it so we can warn others. It's like, at the very least, you know, without dealing, yes, people, if they can, you know, as soon as you can step up, telling the police is one thing when it comes to all sorts of violence and whatnot.
Well, yeah, I had told the police, and they completely rejected that anything had happened and refused to look at my video evidence. That was wonderful.
Yeah, you have incriminating it's like nowadays people send incriminating text messages and phone messages and stuff, and it's like, oh, I have something for you to listen to that will point out that, oh yeah, it's like, but they're like, you know, and you get death threats, bomb threats, stuff like that. I've dealt with that, but the thing is, it's like, you know, religiously intolerant people are just wonderful. And whether it's because they claim a religion or whether they claim something.
Well, it's not nice. Whatever you claim, it's not nice.
But healing is a process, and one thing when people give you books, it's like you got to, you know, I'm grateful when people give me books that are not filthy. If you're going to, some people who watch my channel, some people, I'm aware that you bleed on your books. I don't want your books. If you bled on them, thank you very much. Or
Yeah,
other
I
things.
got this book from you, and there's some strange discoloration, dried liquid, but I know it's not blood, so I trust it.
Oh, I picked it up. Someone spilled coffee on it.
Yeah.
But I ended up with these other ones otherwise. But
yeah, I wouldn't want blood either. You know,
it's like, but what do I find in some of these that I've been given is, oh, there's another chart base exercise, and that's one of the great things. Oh, my turning point. You get little charts. So one of the things that happens with groups like this is whether people stay a member or not.
Mary wants to say goodnight.
They learn their own spiritual exercises. And
it says my internet connection is unstable, so I apologize if anything happens.
Okay. Well, yeah, one of the things a lot of people learn with groups like this how to come up with their own spiritual exercises, how to do their own self-help, how to read whatever religious tradition they have, because a lot of people's like, you get down on your knees until you can't get up, and you just pray about it until you feel until you decide that
because God promises that He would never cause pain or suffering or fear.
Well, suffering's different than pain, but I'm not sure where you get this, because certainly there's consequences, and some people are literally given consequences as punishment, but not for the sake of causing pain.
It would not be of God, it's of somebody or something else at that point where they're wanting to willingly hurt you.
Well, people, but of course that doesn't mean that you need to. There's people that they don't have religion most of the year, so they like beat themselves before Easter, or they beat themselves for Ashura and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, dude, if you're guilty of a crime and you need punished, go in the public and maybe deal with it rather than
repent.
Yeah, repent of things. Don't just beat yourself. Come on, dude.
That's self-sabotage, and that is just as harsh and evil as doing it to someone else.
So, this issue right here is one of the key things. You can go to. You're supposed to be able to do this to a masjid. If they're the masjid, I'm not going to narrow down where you're at, but there's one in somewhere where you're at, and you're supposed to be able to go at least at the dawn prayer, and after the dawn prayer, one of the traditions is to share and interpret each other's dreams. And one of the things about Eckankar groups is that whether it's once a year or twice a year or twice a month or twice a week, depending on how active that particular group is. And I'm in an area where sometimes it's on one side of the state, sometimes on another side of the state. So some years there's not even a meeting within like 100 miles. But it's a group where you can discuss dreams and visions when you're awake, and seeing colors and hearing sounds. And a lot of the stuff that we've talked about is basically stuff that you can talk about with that group. But let's well,
and it's time for me to make a meal.
So I'll let you go, and I'll see you out with your chant here. Lzwvmmh Eve Nu Wa. And so that's a spiritual name for Saturnal Mage here.